Hey everyone. All right, so we're gonna do notes 5, factoring, where a is not equal to 1, so where a is any other number but 1. So we're gonna take our skills from factoring trinomials and GCFs and things like that, and we're going to factor out other trinomials. So here's some general steps that I would follow for this process. So when a does not equal 1, the first thing you should always look at is, do I have a GCF? And that's true when you have a trinomial or any kind of factoring. So a GCF is always your first step. So then the second thing you're going to take a look at is you're going to take a look at factors of your coefficient a. And then you're going to take a look at factors of your coefficient c. And what we're really going to do with this information is we're going to essentially mix and match. Okay, so we're going to go through some examples and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So first things first, so example one, I have 3y squared plus 4y minus 15. First thing I want to look at is always, do I have a GCF? So 3, 4, and negative 15, do they have anything in common? I do not have a GCF here because 3, 4, and 15 do not have anything in common besides 1. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at my factors of A, which here are 1 and 3. And then my factors of 15, 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. So what we're going to do is when we factor trinomials, we know we should end up with binomials. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how these can multiply together to create this trinomial and still give us a middle term that we want. So first things first, I want to take a look at my 3y squared. So we know we have two binomials, so we have these first two terms will give us my 3y squared. So using my factors that I created, 1 and 3, I know 1 times 3 will give me 3, and I know y times y gives me y squared, okay, from the factoring we've already done. So I know I can put a 3y here and a y here, and when I go and do my FOIL or my face or double distribution, whatever you call it, I should end up with my 3y squared, okay? So that I know is given to me, so I'll put that down there, okay? So then the other thing I need to take a look at is my last term, my constant here, 15, okay? And I know that goes in the second part of my binomial, okay? Because of how the multiplication works out with my last term. Okay, so keep in mind we are going to use the signs that we learned the other day in notes 4. The general signs here still apply. Okay, so when we look at our blue term here, our last term, the constant, when we look at the factors, we also need to keep in mind our signs here. So for this one, we have ax squared plus bx minus c. That's the format for example 1, which means we're going to have a plus and a minus. And then our bigger number here needs to be a positive because we have this middle term that we're trying to get to. We have a positive middle term. Okay, so keep the signs in mind. I told you you have to memorize those. You do need to know those. They're going to help you greatly. So for this first example, my suggestion when you start this mixing and matching process, this guessing and checking, I suggest you start with your smallest pairs, meaning your smallest numbers in the pairs, so 3 and 5. So when you're trying to decide what place they belong in, okay, this is where the mixing and matching can get kind of tricky. So you're going to want to make sure that you're using a pencil because we're going to be doing a lot of, writing and erasing and writing and erasing. So make sure that you are using some sort of pencil when you're doing this stuff, okay? That's my suggestion. So for this last term, I'm starting with my 3 and my 5. So my general rule, and I'll write it down here at the bottom. If you don't have a GCF when you start, you shouldn't have one when you're done. So what I mean by that, and I know it's kind of long, what I mean by that is I'm, for example, going to put 3 here in the first term and 5 here in the second term, okay? So what I mean by that, the GCF part, do you see how you have a 3 and a 3 in our first binomial? Hopefully you see that. This would mean that I have a GCF that I didn't take out of 3, but my original problem, we said that we did not have a GCF. Okay, we said no GCF. That did not happen. So we shouldn't have a GCF within our problem. So what this can do, if you can just remember that quick little helpful tip, what this can do is help you make decisions about where to put your factors when you're putting them in the binomial. So meaning 3 shouldn't go with 3 here. I'm going to put the 5 here and the 3 here. That way, that's one less pairing, one less mixing and matching I have to check. Okay? So now we need to think about our signs. All right? So when we think about our signs, I have my 3 and my 5, and then I have my y with my 3 over here. The signs I want to look at are signs that will give me a +4. So remember, So remember, when we do the factoring, the middle term is what we care about. So we need to come up with signs that give us a middle term of a positive 4y. So let's say I put my plus here and my minus there, which means I have now a 5y minus 9y, which gives me a negative 4y. That is not what I want. Okay, I need to have a positive 4y, so that means I chose wrong. This did not work. Okay, this was not a good choice. So now what I can do is erase my plus, erase my minus, and I can switch the signs. So I'm going to put the minus with the 5 and the plus with the 3 and try again. So now I have negative 5 plus 3y times 3, which is 9, gives me my positive 4y. So we made our bigger number positive. So the bigger number here is actually the product of these two numbers right here. That gives us our bigger number. Now, that's not going to happen like that all the time, so please be mindful. That's not a step you have to 100% follow all the time, but I'm just telling you that's where our bigger number comes from. So now, when I go to check my trinomial, I'm going to erase some of this work so I have room. Okay, I know that my first eyebrow, or my first term, 3y times y squared, gives me a 3y squared. Okay. I know negative 5 times positive 3 gives me my minus 15. Negative 5 times y is negative 5y. 3y times 3 is 9y. These are the like terms that I have. So 3y squared plus 4y minus 15. That's what I started with, which means after all of this work, after all of this work that I have, my answer is 3y minus 5 times y plus 3. Okay. All right. So I want to take a look at another example very similar. So we're going to do example 2. I'm going to kind of move some stuff so we can make that happen. So give me just 1 second. All right, so I rearranged a couple things. We're going to take a look at example 2. So example 2, we have 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. So we have this trinomial that we're trying to factor. Again, ask yourself, do I have a GCF? Do 2, 7, and 3 have anything in common? You should be saying no, they do not. So I can go ahead and look at my factors of a, which are 1 and 2, and my factors of 3, which are 1 and 3. So trinomials like this are kind of nice because you only have one pair of factors to work with. So being that I'm going to end up with my group, I'm going to go ahead and set that up. I want to take a look at my signs that I'm given. Okay, so my sign here is negative and I have a positive. If you recall from the last set of notes, when you have an ax squared minus bx plus c, that means you have a minus minus. So I'm going to go ahead and put, I'm going to go ahead and put my minus and my minus in there because that's the standard. Okay, there's no guessing and checking with that. It's minus minus. So my first term, okay, my first term here is this 2x squared, and we're putting that in our first spot. Okay, so I know my factors are 1 and 2, so I'm going to do 2x and 1x in those spots. So then I also know that my last term has to give me a positive 3. So I know 1 times 3 does that. But I need to put them in the binomials in a way that I can get this negative 7x when I add my like terms together. So I need to be very careful about what I'm going to put where. Okay, so where's the 1 going to go and where's the 3 going to go? Because if I choose wrong, I can just erase it, but I need to make sure that I'm thinking ahead on that strategy. So for example, let's do 3 here and 1 here. Okay, so my middle term is what I care about. I need this negative 7. So negative 3 times x is negative 3x. 2x times negative 1 gives me negative 2. So I end up with a negative 5x. I chose wrong because I did not get my negative 7x that I wanted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase my spot with the 3 and the 1, and I'm just going to switch places. So I'm going to put the 1 in the first group, and I'm going to put the 3 in the second group, and I'm going to try again. So now I have negative 1 times x, and I have 2x times negative 3, which gives me a negative 6. So now I end up with my negative 7x like I'm supposed to, which means that my answer here, when I do all the other factoring, so I have 2x squared, and I have my last term, that's a positive 3. Okay, I should end up with the trinomial that I originally started with. So my answer here, my factored terms are 2x minus 1 times x minus 3. Okay, so let's do another one. We're going to skip number 3 for right now. We're going to go ahead and jump to example 5 on the next page, page 25. Okay, so looking at example 5, again, ask yourself, do I have a GCF? Okay, do 10, 3, and 4 have anything in common? So when you look at 10, 3, and 4, you should say, no, I do not have a GCF because they do not have anything in common. So now you know you can go ahead and start working at your factored term. So looking at A, I know that I have factors of 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. For C, your constant back here, I know that I have factors of 1 and 4 and 2 times 2. Okay. So I'm going to, in my space, put my binomials. So again, my suggestion is to start with your lower ones. So I'm going to start with 2, 5. So 2x and 5x. That will always give me my first term because I know that 5 times 2 gives me 10, and I know x times x gives me x squared. So then this is the tricky part as well, because if you look at your last term, and look at the signs of the trinomial, we might have some mixing and matching to do. And then, so let's look at the trinomial signs first. So I am given ax squared plus bx minus c, which tells me that I'm going to have a plus minus, but my bigger number needs to be positive because of my middle term that I'm going to highlight here in green. Okay, so my bigger number when I multiply my middle term, so when I create my little inner and outer, or my nose and smiley face, I need to make sure that when they add together at the end, when you combine like terms, that my bigger number is positive to get a positive answer. So what this also means, when we do pick whether we want 1, 4, 2, 2, remember this little sentence I said? I'm going to go off to the side over here. If you don't have a GCF when you start, you shouldn't have one when you're done. Okay, so I say that because if you look at our factors 2, 2, those are our lowest that I suggest you start with. If I plug in 2 and plug in 2, I now, here in this first binomial, I have now created a GCF that didn't originally exist. Okay, again, this is just a helpful strategy to help you eliminate factors to use to help you decide where to put stuff. So if you can understand what I'm saying with this little shortcut, then it can help you greatly. Okay, so this means that I cannot use 2, 2 because I should not have a GCF. We already said there's no GCF, but now in this green highlighted box, I've somehow created one when there wasn't one to begin with. So I cannot use 2, 2 here. So I'm going to erase where I put 2, 2, and I'm going to try to figure out where I want to put my remaining factors of 1 and 4, because those are the ones we have to use. Okay, so we're going to use these two. So we've already decided to use 2x and 5x. Okay, so now we need to decide where we want 1 and 4 to go and where our signs go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put my plus in, I'm going to put my minus in. If we have to switch them, that's fine, we're going to switch them. I'm going to go ahead and put my 1 and my 4 in here and then see what happens. So when I do my inner, I now have 5x. When I do my outer, 2x times negative 4, I now have a negative 8x, which gives me a negative 3x. Okay, so I have the right number, but not the right sign. Okay, so it's important for you to understand. So I have the right number, but not the right sign here. It's a negative and I need a positive. So what that tells me is I need to switch my signs, that my numbers are in the right place, but my signs are not. So I'm going to switch my signs. I'm going to make the minus go with the 1 and the plus go with the 2. So now when I do my multiplication, my bigger number now ends up being positive. So I now have a positive answer that should give me the middle term that I started with. Okay. I know my yellow highlighted boxes will give me 10x squared. I know that my blue highlighted boxes will give me 4. What I'm concerned with is the middle term that's in green. And I got that when I switched my signs. So that means my answer here should be 2x minus 1 times 5x plus 4. And if you notice, I do not have any GCFs. I don't have anything else that I can factor. I'm completely done. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here because it's getting a little long, but we will do more practice together. All right, have a great day.